All right, let's dive into something that's, well, it's not easy to talk about, but it's so important. We're going to break down 5 key signs that it might be time to cut contact with someone in your life. And look, I know this is a heavy topic, but sometimes recognizing these signs is one of the most powerful things you can do for your own mental health.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. Have you ever walked away from a conversation just feeling drained, like completely wiped out, but you can't really put your finger on why? If that sounds familiar, I want you to know you are not making it up. There's a very real reason behind that feeling.
And that's really the key here. This isn't just some vague, random feeling. Psychology actually gives us a kind of roadmap. It gives us clear signals that can help us see when a relationship might have tipped over into being unhealthy, and more importantly, when it's time to start thinking about protecting ourselves.
Okay, so let's get right into the first sign. And honestly, this one is probably the most fundamental of them all, because everything, and I mean everything, in a healthy relationship comes down to boundaries.
So what are boundaries, really? Well, think of them as the invisible lines you draw around yourself. They're what tell people, hey, this is what I'm comfortable with and this is what I'm not. They are absolutely essential for any kind of healthy connection, because at their core, they're all about mutual respect.
Now here's the thing. The big red flag isn't when someone accidentally steps over a line they didn't know existed. That can happen. The real problem, the sign you need to watch out for, is when you've clearly said, hey, I'm not okay with this, and they just keep doing it anyway.
And I really want this to land. That's not a simple misunderstanding. No way. When it happens over and over, it becomes a pattern, and that pattern is screaming one thing: disrespect.
Okay, let's move on to sign number 2. This one's a little different, because it's less about their actions and more about listening to your own body. I want you to really pay attention to this. Think about it. When you're around this person, or even just thinking about seeing them, how does your body feel? Do your shoulders tense up? Does your stomach get all knotted? Do you feel kind of small or anxious? That feeling is a major clue.
And please, please hear this. That is not all in your head. It's a real physical reaction. Your nervous system is basically your own personal alarm system. Its job is to detect threats. And if that alarm is going off every time you're near a certain person, it's trying to tell you something really important, that the dynamic feels unsafe. All right, sign number 3. Now this one can be really tricky to spot because it's so subtle, but man, is it damaging. We're talking about what's often called the guilt game. Basically, emotional manipulation. So what does that even mean? Well, at its core, it's all about control. See, instead of taking responsibility for their own emotions, they make you feel responsible for them. Suddenly, you're the reason they're upset, or angry, or hurt. Your actions are framed as the source of all their problems. And it shows up in a few classic ways. They'll twist a situation around so they look like the victim. You'll find yourself apologizing for things you didn't even do just to stop the argument. And after a while, you start to feel like you're going crazy, questioning your own perceptions. That's a huge red flag.
And let's just call this what it is. That's not love. That's not friendship. That is 100% about control. Healthy relationships are about respect and taking accountability, not using guilt to keep someone in line. This brings us right to sign number 4, and this one's all about reciprocity. We're talking about relationships that feel like a one-way street. Just take a look at this. Does any of this resonate? Are you always the one to call first? The one who has to fix every argument? The one who's always trying to be understanding, but you never really feel understood yourself? Yeah. When you see it laid out like that, it's pretty clear. It feels like you're doing all the work.
And here's the hard truth. That kind of imbalance just isn't sustainable. You can't pour from an empty cup forever. Sooner or later, that one-way street is going to lead to some serious resentment and, you guessed it, total burnout.
Okay, we're at our 5th and final sign. And this one is for anyone who feels like they're stuck on a merry-go-round they can't get off of. We're talking about the unchanging cycle. This is when you've tried. You really have. You've communicated your feelings, you've explained what's hurting you, you've given them chances to change, and yet the same exact behavior keeps happening.
It's this maddening loop, right? You speak up, you explain what's wrong, maybe things get better for a little while, so you give them another chance, but then, boom, the same harmful thing happens again. And you're right back where you started, feeling totally defeated. It's exhausting. And from a psychology standpoint, there's a really simple, powerful principle at play here. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
So if someone has shown you time and time again who they are and how they'll act, you have to start believing them. At some point, staying means accepting that things probably aren't going to change.
So, okay, we've gone through all 5 signs. Broken boundaries, constant exhaustion, the guilt game, the one-way street, and that unchanging cycle. What do we do with all this? Well, it boils down to one thing: choosing your own peace.
And I think it's so important to reframe this whole idea. Cutting contact doesn't have to be some big, angry, dramatic explosion. It can be a quiet, calm, and incredibly powerful act of self-care. It's simply about protecting your mental health and saying, you know what, I deserve to feel safe and respected.
And there's this quote that I think says it all perfectly. Peace is more important than history. Just let that sink in for a second. Just because you've known someone forever doesn't automatically mean they get a lifelong pass to your future, especially if it costs you your peace of mind.
So what's the takeaway here? Look, this doesn't mean you have to go and cut everyone off tomorrow, but maybe it starts small. Maybe it starts with just one boundary. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What is one small thing you can do starting today to protect your own peace?